Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday night. This is Scotty Roberts, your host for the Intrepid radio program. It's here on the Odyssey Radio Network, ODYSY1.com. Come on over and see the goodness that is Odyssey Radio. You can also come on over to my YouTube channel where you can watch the simulcast. Tonight, we happen to be live. And so we're not actually broadcasting on Odyssey tonight. We're just live on the YouTube channel. And I know that cuts off a big portion of our audience, but hopefully they can come on over and join all the Intrepids over on the chat room here in the YouTube channel. And when you see this in any kind of archive form or hear it eventually over on Odyssey in an archive, that's over at my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Mr. Scotty Roberts. Good evening, folks. Welcome to the show tonight. I'm glad you can be here. I'm seeing there's some people lining up in the chat room already. Doug Stack, good to see you. Susie Q and Beth Kirkham, good to see you both. Hey, Sarah Nichols, nice that you're here. You're a busy woman, so I'm glad that you take some time to slip over here every now and then. Iowa X, good to see you. Live from the deep Louisiana swamps. Yes, that would be me, live from Louisiana. You know, it's funny. I always heard people, because I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, lived in Minnesota and Wisconsin most of my life. I would say 9/10 of my life, maybe more than that, maybe 99% of my life. I've only spent a couple of years in other places around the United States, but having grown up there, we're used to the very cold or winters, weather that will get down to, the 30 and 40 below zero in some actual air temperature, in some cases, some years, some cycles, you could say. And other times we've had milder winters where it only gets down to about 10 below zero, maybe 15 on a chill day. But then, of course, we have in the summers the total opposite. We have 105 degrees and really high dew points and humidity, making it almost subtropical half the year. And then subarctic the other half of the year, except for those seasons, spring and fall, which are gorgeous up there. But all that to say, having grown up in that cold climate for the winters, we would always laugh at people who are from the South. I know my grandfather, who had an island that he would retreat to, and he actually bought a piece of the island, Wanaha, in the off the north coast of Honduras, and he lived on the next door island, Roatan, and he had lived right on the beach there. And you're talking Pirates of the Caribbean territory. Gorgeous place. I'd been down there a couple of times before he passed away. Oh God, 1995, I believe he passed away. It was 95 or 96, and so he's been gone for quite a while. But when I was in high school, he pulled up stakes and moved down there. But we would always hear him. He'd write us letters, longhand letters. There was no internet, so to speak, that we have today. And so there was no communication like this high tech stuff we do now. And he would write letters and say things like, it got really cold here. And this would be in what would be our dead of winter. And he'd say, it went down to 65 degrees. And I'm wearing my jacket and I've got a windbreaker on. It's just not enough. So I'm trying to bundle up. Now, I'm starting to get an inkling of what that means. Doug Stack can probably fill in some blanks here. It has been extremely warm and humid here the last couple of weeks, despite all the icy weather, the weird Texas weather that came over here, that really oddball ice storm that came through. But it's been in the mid 70s and really high humidity. And so it's kind of muggy out, when your clothes stick to your skin and kind of thing. And I was getting used to that. As you saw, I was even getting a little bit of a tan going in that sun by being outside so much. And now it rained like cats and dogs this morning, really hard. And we went out this afternoon. We just stayed indoors for the morning. I did a bunch of paperwork, client stuff, and then went outside and was freezing I mean, I was freezing. I had to put this sweater on that you see here. I got it even zipped up to my neck. And the sweater on because it was cold. And I found out it's only 61 degrees outside. And I thought, I didn't even dare tell my wife, Rainey, hey, it's freezing here. It got down to 61. While it's still up there, it's just come out of the deep freeze. So there you go. That's what it's like here today. I'm beginning to understand why Southerners have an aversion to the cold. So the rain hasn't really hit us yet, said Doug. I don't know if it's even gonna if it hasn't yet. It was here way this morning, Doug, and it was just pounding down. So anyway, there's that. There's the weather. So how's the weather in your neck of the woods? Hey, Kate Farrington, good to see you. Leslie Holker, I'm glad that you're here. Good to see you. Delaney Pearl Jones, great to see you. And who else we got? We got Steph Cuervo Queen. She is in the room. And Michelle Kenham Free is also in the room. Good to see you, Michelle. And who else we got? Field Guy. I'm not used to wearing a jacket, he said. Yeah, it's like that meme that was out a couple of weeks ago when all the ice was down here. Because it gets icy and cold, like in Minnesota. They're like, oh, no. What is it down? How did the joke go? Something about it gets, cold down here. And people are like staying indoors, don't go out, don't drive, don't go anywhere. The city, state, and county will tell you. And up in Minnesota, they're like, hey, put on your heavy coat, eh? And that's about it. And that's about how it is. Leslie can tell you that. She lives up there, not far from Rainey and me. Iowa X, it's good to see you. I'm from Iowa. I actually froze to death as a child in the 1970s, but I live on as AI on the internet. Well, it's good to have you here then, Iowa. Steve Clark, how you doing, sir? Good to have you here. And of course, Master Finn, good to have you here. Glad to see that you're here and at your post. And we got anybody else? Anybody I missed? Susie Q. I think I said, hey, Susie Q. You lost your internet. I'll try to rewrite back and okay, computer's down, she said. So there you go. Hope you make it back in if I haven't seen you again. And Roger Rabbit, good to see you. I hope Carly and Kinsey are doing well today. What a rough go you guys have had. And the dog, for some reason, is in his crate over here. I'm going to get up for a second, folks, even though it's live broadcast. I'm going to go let him out, or he's going to sit and whine throughout the show. Hang on. I'll be right back. Let me get out of here. I'm kind of in a little cage almost. So here we go. Hang on. Come on, Pop. Get you out of here. I'm going to put you out here. Here you go. Go see Sam. All right. I'm back for as easy as that was. I've been liking to say I'm Scotty Roberts in the makeshift Intrepid radio program, coming to you from the makeshift studio in my makeshift life right now down in Louisiana. So I appreciate everybody that's here. I appreciate your giving your time to be here. Beth Kirkham, I think I said hello earlier, flashing by, but welcome to the show tonight. And we got anybody else? Anybody else I may have missed? There we go. If anybody creeps in, I'll try to say hello as well. That's always what's nice about the live stream shows is that I can do that. And it maybe lacks informality in the way I present the information, the way we talk here when we're going live stream. But that's the beauty of live stream. It's almost like live radio. And that's all I got to say about that. And so, things that have passed through my mind over the weekend, news that I've seen, which it's almost hard to talk about anything other than the topics we have on the show because you start getting into any kind of current event, what's happening? You are hitting politics square in the face. And I don't really like to talk about politics as much as I like to talk about what's going on. And something that was really planted home with me again just today, just a few hours ago, is looking at how people talk to each other on the internet. Now, we've done whole shows about that on this broadcast, about how social media has changed forever the way people interact with each other. And now, those same people that you will see on the internet would talk with you and act with you and react with you in very different ways were they sitting face to face, eyeball to eyeball with you. But because they aren't, and the social media itself has created a I hate the term new normal, but the new normal is nobody can communicate very well um, on the internet, because what they've done is they found that the internet offers them a certain form of anonymity that allows them to be more crass with people, to attack people quicker, to jump in people's shit faster than normal, and an overall. Now, some of you are my friends on Facebook and my social media, and we have good communications. So the internet also has afforded people that are friends, people that like each other, that get along, that respect each other, the ability to talk in ways and communicate that we never had before. However, now when you disagree with somebody, you don't even have to be nice anymore. Have you noticed that? And this is nothing new. This is not new information I'm foisting on you here. But at the same time, I'm just noticing how nasty it's continuing to be. Oh, well, of course, wait for it. Here it comes. It's all Trump's fault. Trump's the one who promoted nastiness on the internet, right? It's his nature, his vile nature, that has taught us all to be nasty. That's what we're told anyway. And I pulled up, and sometimes I like to do this just because of the content. I had a friend. Let's see if I can find him here. Oh, I might have put that away. Let me go over to it for you right now. I have a friend that I have known. He's never been a close personal, we're going to go stroll down the beach together and have drinks. I've known him for years. He ran the campground over at the Minnesota Renaissance Festival, as well as being a crafter. He had a booth there and sold his wares. And so he put up a post this morning that said this. And I kind of, sometimes I like to comment on posts of friends that I think are silly or stupid or ridiculous, or I'm looking to pick a fight. But rarely that so much anymore, as I find myself more and more these days just starting to poise my fingers to type a response to some stupidity. And I go, no, leave it alone. You'll just get drawn into a huge discussion because you can't say anything that counters anybody, especially if what they're saying is something that's polarizing. It's from one polar end or the other of the spectrum. And generally, a lot of people are guided by their political ideologies first before their friendships, before the talking decently to people. And I have seen some pretty nasty, crass stuff out there, and I get awfully tired of it. And apparently, I have some kind of reputation with the Minnesota Renaissance Festival that used to be very good 15, 16 years ago when I left the festival. I left in fairly high regard with a lot of friends. Like I say, I would throw birthday parties at my house, and I'd have 200 people show up. Now, I turned 40, so this is 20 years ago now. But when I turned 40, I threw my own 40-year-old birthday party. And I told people, don't bring gifts or anything. I just put a post out there. What was I posting on in was it MySpace back then? I don't think Facebook was around. It was Facebook was around in 2000. I can't remember exactly, but I put the word out and I invited everybody. I said, look, to a festival group. Oh, I think it was Live Journal. a lot of the festies used to post on. And I put out a little announcement, said, "Hey, I'm turning 40 on Saturday. Why don't everybody show up at my place? There will be drinks, there'll be food. No gifts are necessary. If you bring anything, bring a bottle of scotch to crack open and share. Single malt Highland scotch." It was very specific. So I had about 200 people come through my house that night. And Rainey was actually one of them, by the way. I don't remember even seeing her. I saw her boyfriend at the time because he and I were fight partners, stage combat, rapier, dagger, all that kind of stuff on stage at the festival. And we were fellow Royal Guard out there. And so I probably saw him, but Rainey maybe in passing. I just didn't know her. And in 2000, she would have been what, 20? And I was turning 40. So anyway, that's an aside. So all these people are people I knew, and I had very high repute at the time. I say that in a lot of humility and modesty. My reputation was very strong out there, and lots of friends. And then it seems to have eroded over the last 4 or 5 years. Hmm. 4 or 5 years. What happened about 4 or 5 years ago? And you can start to put that picture together. As soon as I was not towing the line with the extreme liberal, progressive, leftist, whatever, blah, 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 on that end of the spectrum, um, you're not really allowed to have different opinions amongst that group of people. Because if you do, there's something wrong with you. It's not just, oh, I can respect you because you have a different opinion. It's you have a different opinion and you support that so and so. Therefore, I must mark and avoid you and call you names, attack you, and anything you say is obviously a negative. So, have you experienced that, guys? Even those of you talking about tornadoes and stuff, just think for a second. Have you experienced that? Have you had people online? Now, some of this is to what degree you expose what you believe about things. I used to get some attacks before the last administration for being a Bible scholar. People would want to attack, and I used the same tack back then that I do now. And that was one of common sense. It's like, hey, you don't have to accept the faith stories in the Bible, but the Bible is not a fantasy book. That's what I would hear from people. Oh, it's just a big fat fairy tale. And I'd say, well, it's really not. And as polite as I could, professionally as I could, I would tell them why I thought it wasn't. The history is efficacious. Now, the faith part, you might be able to take or leave. And and I ran into that again this week. There's some group I joined a long time ago on Facebook about recovering ex-Christians or something. And I thought there was some interesting banter that went on there. And every 6 months or so, I might contribute something over there. But I'm finding that a lot of the people that post there post things about it's not just, hey, even though this exists there, it's not just questions. It's not just, here's what I think, here's why I'm an ex-Christian. What do you guys think about this and so on? It's usually something that's very derogatory or very demeaning about Christians or Christianity or biblical topics. And every now and then something comes across my path and I say, I've got to say something here. Um, the other day, somebody, I don't think it was in that group, but somebody was posting something and yeah, this was not in the ex-Christians group. I just saw it yesterday, I think. You've seen those pictures of the golden statue of Trump, very cartoony looking golden statue wearing the United States boxer briefs and a red tie and all of that, and they show people jokingly bowing to it. I don't think, and of course they're all coming out. This is what Trump stars are all about. They're worshiping this homophobe, racist, transphobe, blah 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 blah, and the kinds of things that get said. And to me, somebody who has to resort to that sort of rhetoric is somebody who does not have anything, in other words, nothing substantive to say. And that's very true, Matt Finn. You're never going to win against ad hominem. And statements that are filled with antagonistic language, filled with emotion, lacking in logic. Better use of energy would be to writing your books. Absolutely, brother. I agree with that. Yeah, and it's funny the first time. Yeah, I even said, "Hey, it's kind of funny when you think about it." But just saying, here are this guy, this former president's worshipers, but it didn't end there. It went post after post after post after post after post of digging in on that topic. And I simply went and I asked the question. I said, "What do you all mean by worship? How are you defining worship?" I said, "I think worship is a very specific thing." And then, of course, you're treated like you just spoiled our fun railing on the former president, well, which they don't call him that. And that's the attitude you get. Oh, you can't go in there. It can't be a real discussion. If you don't have anything negative to say, you best not say anything at all. And sometimes I look at that crap. 9 times out of 10 these days, I go by. I post news stories, I post events, I talk about things. I try to avoid the argument anymore. I'm tired of it. But I said, no, seriously. I said, what do you think is worship? And then they're showing the actual, and it was, of course, a Photoshop photo. They were using the picture of all the Christians, the Christian organization that came to the White House, and they all laid hands on Donald Trump to pray for him. And everybody's just all on fire and up in arms about that. And I said, you do know, and I was talking to the guy who put up the post. I said, you do know that the laying on of hands is actually a very old tradition in the church. I said the very early Christians in the book, as a matter of fact, in the book of Acts in the New Testament, they would lay hands on somebody, on the shoulder, on the back, on the head. They would lay hands on when they prayed for that person to either grant him safety, grant him security, bless him, help his needs, his illnesses, so on, and to guide him on his way. And I said, what a powerful spiritual thing to do. And I said, now you may not like the former president. I said, but what a great opportunity. I said, if you, who, even if you didn't like the president, but you believed in the power of prayer, if you had the opportunity, would you have laid hands on him and said, I want to pray for you? I don't agree with a single thing you do, but don't you think that's the person, I asked him, that would need more prayer than somebody who isn't that way? I said, so why don't we act that way? And of course, it's too logical for some people. It's too common sense. But so I leave it be. And after a while, but we got to talk a little bit about what the laying on of hands was and what really is worship, and the fact that the picture, while being funny, was a photoshopped version of that picture. That group of Christians laying hands on Trump in the Oval Office, and they replaced it in Photoshop with that golden idol thing. And I said, it's great to make a political point or a point that you want to talk about. But if you have to rely knowingly on something that's been photoshopped or altered in order to bolster that case to draw people into the discussion, I said, you're really being kind of disingenuous with that. And so those are the kinds of things. But somebody today, and this is what I was originally getting at here, old friend of mine, he puts this post up. He said, how did we get to the point where Nazism and racism are things we're supposed to tolerate? And of course, I know his post is pointed, very pointed toward the Trump and the Trump administration. And I simply put up, I said, tell you what I said. I said, who's tolerating these types of people? Who's tolerating them? Who's tolerating Nazis? Who's tolerating racism? And of course, people have their answers to me. The GOP, for one, they're so afraid to lose their base, they tolerate some of the worst behavior and very rarely denounce racism or racial violence. They resist any and all, and he goes on and on and on. And I said, I don't personally know any GOPers who support or tolerate Nazism or racism. Not saying there aren't pockets who identify with the right who do, but as a general rule, I found that to be a caterwaul ensconced deeply in the leftist rhetorical political game, much the same way the right likes to say everyone on the left is in support of socialism and communism. I said it's gross generalization. You know what that drew? A whole bunch of laugh emojis. So it's so silly. And nobody can talk pleasantly to each other. And um, and then other people in there are not answering me but talking to each other. Yeah, it's hard to make the willfully ignorant see the light, especially with those with a massive sense of pride. They cannot admit they were wrong or see fault in their chosen leaders. That said, the same person is an amazing friend and his pride in his family is just as strong. Not sure how he fell on that side of the fence. So people are, they don't understand how I possibly could hold to the ideologies I believe. And so you see what's out there, the stuff that's out there, and it becomes ridiculous. So I am apparently to the left as deluded as I might think some people on the left are. It's like, how can people believe certain things? It's like, how can you not see through the haze and the fog? If it wasn't a political ideology on either end, it was just a thing out there, most of these people would be able to call it out for what it was. But it's like people drop common sense. And it was interesting that in this thread, something totally different was brought up. There's somebody I know who's a belly dancer at the festival. She was when I was out there 16 plus years ago. And she was very young back then. She's maybe Rainey's age, maybe a little younger. She's got to be upper 30s now, pushing 40. And she said something like, I blame Mike Lindell, Trump, and Pence. It pisses me off royally. This former president used the word gypped. Might as well have said the N word, this person said. Now, she has obviously got Romani background, or to her, that's stylized Romani gypsy. So I don't know exactly what her background is. And my response to her, because I knew her, because the conversation was going on, I said, yeah, those people. And my response was meant to say, kind of a slam on Biden. It's like, you're talking about Trump or somebody using the word gypped, and it's a slur of some kind. I said, my point was, well, your own guy that you elected to office does it too. It's either deliberate or it's a slip of the tongue. So let's hear equal condemnation or equal tolerance for people who say things. Well, that didn't go over big. Her instant response to me was, excuse me? You know that response from anybody. I am of Romani descent. Gypped is the equivalent of the N word. Now, let me full stop there. Can I ask any of you, have you ever equated the word, oh man, I got gypped? Have you ever equated that with the kind of sensitivity and offense that people seem to take over the N word? And because we're adults here, we can't actually say the word. We have to use N word because just the utterance of it is offensive. Yet I'm driving out with my son some days. My 20-year-old son likes music I don't like. And what's new about that in the grand scheme of the world? But my son is playing music. He's listening to rap and stuff like that, which I can handle about this much of. And I got to tell you, um, there was one song, quote unquote, he was listening to. I swear to you, every phrase had the word nigga in it. And I'm like, I'm listening to that for a while, and it had to be 20 times in what I guess you'd consider a stanza of that lyric. And I said to Sam, I said, this stuff throws me. I said, I guess that's an okay word to use, right? And but you can't if you are not from that community. But it's highly offensive if you even say the word, even in intellectual discourse. You can't say, well, now somebody said the word nigger, and see, I've even got a nigger. See, don't want to be banned on YouTube because I said the wrong kind of word. But can you say, why can't you say that? You can say fuck on YouTube. You can say shit. You can talk about intercourse in the crassest of ways. You can do anything. You can, you can call Trump a homophobe, a Nazi, and all of that stuff. And any people that are on the right, you can refer to them as that. But you use the N word, even in intellectual discourse. Mark Twain's books, they banned them because he used the word nigger in the text in the 1800s, in the way people communicated to each other back then. But are you allowed to say that in public discourse? Hell no. Oh, you're going to offend somebody. Well, somebody's going to be offended because I'm talking about words that our society is starting to deem as really offensive, and you can't even utter them or talk about them. Because, by God, folks, when I say the N word, nobody really knows what I'm talking about, do they? Why isn't the term N word become just as offensive as the actual word itself? Why not? Because if I'm talking in a news story and I'm talking about, and some senator of some state, let's slip on a hot mic the N word, what are people going to say? What, Nancy? Nincompoop? Ninny? None such? What are they talking about? I don't know what they're talking about. What's the N word? We all know N word stands for the N word. So why can't say the N word? The saying it, the utterance of the vowels, the utterance of the consonants, the utterance of the syllables bears with it oppressive offense. But to say we're not allowed to say the N word here, we all know what the N word is. That's become the surrogate for saying the word. I mean, at least in discourse, it is. I never get mad at anybody and go, you effing N word. We don't say that. It's not used that way. But we could say we're talking about the N word and the use of language like that in our society, why it's offensive to people. But you can't use the actual content. All right. Been on that point enough. But this young woman that I knew a long time ago, and I still call her a young woman, she's a little younger than my wife. And she said, excuse me, I'm of Romani descent. Gypped is the equivalent of the N word. So, have any of you, get back to that question that started my rant, have you ever equated the word gypped? I've been gypped with the N word. I haven't. So, moving on, maybe that's my insensitivity. So I go on, she goes on and says, do not speak of the oppression you do not know, older white male. That's what she called me. Check your privilege. She said, also, the last time I checked, that was my opinion. I also didn't ask for yours. Now, remember, this is in an open thread. All of these people, if they wanted to say something to any of you commenting on my threads, they wouldn't have a problem doing it. Some of you have experienced it. Jacques, for the fact that we're not close friends at all, we're friends, we're old friends. He comments on my posts, I comment on his. Sometimes he comments to people commenting on my posts. So I took the time, because I know this lass. Oh, is that offensive too? I said, no need for hostility toward me. I was mocking the president, not the word gypped. I know precisely where the diminutive came from. I'll bet 98% of Americans don't know where the word gypped is a derivative of. I don't use the word myself, as I prefer using screwed in such instances. I've been screwed out of my money. I don't say I've been gypped out of my money. It's also an insult to refer to me as older white male, quote unquote. Did you know that? You know that which has become so vogue to say these days, especially amongst the younger set, you're just an old white male, you're racist and xenophobic and blah, 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 blah. It's so vogue to say that now. I've been called that by so many people. Oh, you're just an old white guy. And you're just, she said, I said, did you know it's an insult to refer to me as an older white male? I said, but it's a convenient statement these days, but it's sexist, racist moniker. And it's a good thing I'm not easily offended, or I'd call you out on it. And then I said, as for rendering opinions, because I was told this was my opinion, I didn't ask for yours. And I just said, it's an open thread for all of Jacques' friends on which to comment. He makes a lot of comments on mine to our mutual friends as I do on his, especially with people I know. There's no fault or foul in a social media thread amongst people who know each other, unless you're being deliberately nasty. I said, on a side note, my current book delves heavily into the Romani. As an historian, I place great value on research and critical thinking. And the response was, try living it. We're not even welcome in the States. I didn't know Romani weren't welcome in the United States. I run into Romani every now and then, not a lot, but I know there's huge Romani communities in the States. They're not even welcome in America. Maybe like the Irish were at one time. I don't know. I don't know what the comparison is. She said, so research history. I'd love to correct it for you. I'll call my extended family so it's not biased. And my final response was, there are too many lives to live in order for any one person to have a complete knowledge of any particular group save their own. And even then, many people can experience gaps of ignorance. This was in response to her saying, you haven't lived it. So hardly anybody's lived anybody else's experience. And it's just because it's in text format. Is it just because it's in text format, I asked, that I'm perceiving you as being hostile with me for some reason? Am I reading you incorrectly? I asked her. I said, I've done nothing to degrade the Romani people, or your people for that matter. I would welcome any positive input from you on what I have researched and written, although I'm not sure it would require a correction on your part, perhaps only an enhancement. What might be helpful from you and yours? Is anything you could tell me about Romani folk magics and medicines? I have found some pretty good information spread across several books, but I want to get into the deeper homespun tales that people don't readily know. And that's where I left it off. And I haven't heard anything back. So this is what I'm talking about how sensitive people have become on this kind of topic, on any kind of topic these days. They attack before they treat you like an old friend. And it becomes really old. And I can already tell there's a whole set of people at the Renaissance Festival that already have it in their mind that I am some kind of person to be avoided because of my extreme rightist nut job points of view. And that I'm an attack dog. And I don't ever attack anybody. I will be blunt about asking a question sometimes, but I never come in and call anybody names or anything like that. So there you go. I don't know what everybody's saying about this, but I can wrap this a little bit. I just wanted to let you know the kind of stuff I've been encountering here. Yeah, always Matt Finn says that always is the lame excuse to discredit the comparison. Schoolyard shit for soft minds. Boom. Exactly. Beth Kirkham says, if I referred to some white people as older white people instead of cracker, I might not have been put in Facebook jail. There you go. Yeah. So certain derogatories are okay, other derogatories are bad. It all depends on what the rule of the day is. And all I ever tell anybody is use your common sense. There's certain things you don't say. If I'm going to insult somebody, I'll try to insult them intellectually, not racially or anything like that. I think it's kind of dumb. But Let's see. Scotty is here. I just saw Steph say hi to Scotty. Hey, welcome, Scotty. Let's see. I'm going to go back just a little bit. Hey, Barbie D. I see somebody said hi to Barbie. So you must be here. There you are. So on it goes, the discussion back there. So how come when a colored person calls a Caucasian a white bitch, that's not offensive or racist, says Steph? That's a good question. I pretty much, when somebody calls me an old white man, that's just the opinion of an old white man. Well, do you want to leave the racism and sexism out of it? Why do you have to mention my race, my skin color, and why do you have to mention my sex? What has it got to do with it that I'm a male? That's what you guys all want. I'll point out. That's what you all want from the left. You want to erode and blend everybody together. I said, well, I identify. What if I don't identify as a white male? What if you just offended me? I'm so offended because I don't identify as those things. What if I identify as a pale male lesbian? What if that's who I am? And you didn't take the time to find out before calling me a white male, old white male. I identify as 26 years old. How dare you offend me by saying I'm old? So, there you go. Blah, 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 blah. Fine. This is Beth. I hope that wasn't fun that you said that. So, all of this, in a way, it ties into the topic for the night. And I want to ask you, first of all, what's consciousness? Who out there in the chat room listening to this can type down a quick definition without looking it up off the top of your head? What is consciousness? Tell me what you believe that to be. I'd like to hear what you think it is. What's consciousness? Yeah, I could pass as a lesbian professor. Shut up, Iowa. These are manly glasses. Man, I got another pair up there that's totally different than these. If I could reach them and put them on, I'd show you up. Hold on. Maybe I can reach. They're right there. I got my fingers on them. Hold on. Hang on. That should be manly. Maybe manly for where are they? Take my hand on. How's that for riveting live radio? That isn't really radio, but it is live. Here we go. All right. And I just want to tell you, Iowa, they're not in there. It must be in my briefcase. This is my manly. It's my clear case. I have a clear case, so I don't have to open it to see which glasses are in there. All right. They're in my briefcase or somewhere. So, all that to say this. What is consciousness? Watch me not get credit for my answers, as Field Guy. All right, Field Guy, let me go back and look. What did you say about the question I asked? Consciousness. What is consciousness? You want to be aware of your surroundings. Damn, that was pretty good. That's pretty close to spot on. Very good. I'm giving you credit where credit is due, Field Guy. There you go. I do need a mic. I need a mic on my lapel, or I need to get the directional mic in here. Back in here. I don't have one here. So, but you're absolutely right, Steve Clark. Brianna Dunlap, how you doing? CO is to know, or show, however it's pronounced. SCIO is to know. Con is to bring together. Conscious is to bring knowingness together and awareness. Spot on, Brianna. Field Guy, I gave you credit, but Brianna's is better. So consciousness, it's the state of being awake of one's and aware of one's surroundings. That's the textbook answer. The awareness or perception of something by a person. The fact of awareness by mind and of itself in the world. I've got a great definition up over here of consciousness. Listen to this. Consciousness, at its simplest, is sentience or awareness of internal or external existence. Now, you look at shows like Star Trek. That's where I first learned the word sentient being and the phrase. And I'm sure it passed by me in school many times, and I ignored it, didn't care. But consciousness is sentience. Sentience is awareness, aware of your internal and external existence. Despite millennia of analysis, I'm going to really close to look at this this definition here. Despite millennia of analysis, definitions, explanations, and debates by philosophers and scientists, consciousness remains incredibly puzzling and incredibly controversial, being at once the most familiar and most mysterious aspect of our lives. And perhaps the only widely agreed notion about the topic is the intuition that it exists. So opinions differ about what exactly needs to be studied and explained as consciousness. Sometimes it's synonymous with the mind, and at other times, an aspect of the mind. In the past, it was one's inner life. That was your consciousness. The world of introspection, of private thought, imagination, volition. Now, today, it often includes some kind of experience, cognition, feeling, or perception. It might be awareness, being aware, awareness of awareness, of self awareness. Hold on. Ah, I don't have a sneeze button. Wow, that just sneaks up on you. If I let that go, it's going to hurt. I mean, if I let it go, if I blunt it, it's going to hurt. So today, it has that idea of experience and cognition, perception. It might be awareness of awareness. There might be different levels or orders to consciousness, or different kinds of consciousness, or just the one kind with different features and different facets on it. Other questions include whether only humans are conscious. You think other species on this planet are conscious other than humans? Is a dog aware of its existence, its internal and exterior existence? Is it aware as a sentient being? Um, Animals, the whole universe, the disparate range of research, notions, speculations, they all raise doubt about whether the right questions are even being asked about this. So, what do you think about consciousness? What is sentient and what is not sentient? Hey, Corin Browning, good to see you, brother. Glad to have you here. Glad you made it in. Steve Clark says, hey to Kevin. Where's Kevin? Which Kevin is in here? Is it Bookworm Kevin? Or is it, yeah, there's Kevin Miller. Good to see you, Kevin. If consciousness is the same as being sentient, do we stop being sentient when we're sleeping? Asks Kevin Miller. I think consciousness is what we're talking about, not just conscience, or not just being conscious. You're conscious, you're awake and aware. Consciousness. Well, maybe it is really the same word. I would differentiate. I've never really thought of that aspect of that question. Are we not sentient if we are sleeping? Are we not aware? I think we're aware in the sense that our brains, when we talked about dreams a while back, that our brains are those computers that never really go to sleep. They keep our brains working. They offer information. It processes our information of the day. When we dream now, we're not always in dream state either. Sometimes it's just quiet sleep. So what do you think? Are we not sentient when we're not awake? So Mike Yehudi, good to see you, brother. Glad you're in here. Miss you, brother. Dogs certainly dream. They do, Kevin Miller. They dream. So does that make dogs sentient? What do you think is what would be the definition of sentience or being sentient? Let's look at that for a second. Let's just see a definition of sentience. Sentience is the capacity to be aware of feelings and sensations. Can a dog feel sad? Can a dog feel happy? Does a dog have sensations? The word was first coined by philosophers in the 1630s for the concept of an ability to feel, derived from Latin sentientum, sentientum, to distinguish it from the ability to think. In modern Western philosophy, sentience is the ability to experience sensations. In different Asian religions, the word sentience has been used to translate a variety of concepts. In science fiction, the word sentience is sometimes used interchangeably with sapience or self awareness or consciousness. So in thinklink.com, Wikipedia gives a definition of sentience analogous to the definition of consciousness. Sentience is the capacity to feel, perceive, or experience subjectively. Excuse me. 18th century philosophers used the concept to distinguish the ability to think or reason from the ability to feel, which is sentience. So that's kind of something I've gone along with in the past. Kevin Miller, since you were bringing that up, does a dog have the ability to reason? Can it sit down and reason its way through a problem? Uh, Not just mere awareness, but reasoning abilities. How about anybody else? Anybody else? What do you think of that? They've got to be interlinked, says Corin. I agree. Inanimate objects are not sentient. Yeah. Is this jar of what is this one? It's raspberry, jalapeno, serrano, habanero. It's raspberry and sugar. Bayub, Bayub. I'm sorry, Bayou Beth's jelly. Sorry, there was not a space between the Bayou and the Beth, and so I was reading it wrong. This is something that Doug Stack gave me that his mother made. I've got a bunch of these jellies he gave me. So, um, where was I going with that? This whole idea of the capacity to feel, perceive, or experience subjectively is sentience. It's the ability to think and to reason. Can a dog reason its way out of, I don't know, the dog catcher's grasp? Can it reason that if I poop on the floor, I might get put outside, or I might get hit with a rolled up newspaper, whatever that might be. So, is that reason or is that trained response, Pavlovian? So that's a good question. So, moving on here, I've got a lot more material, of course, because I didn't start right away with this. This is why sometimes it'd be good to have a 2-hour show, but I don't want to do a 2-hour show every day yet. So there is a science and a philosophy of consciousness I want to look at. There is also this question that what if consciousness comes first in bridging the mind gap or the mind and body gap? It's going to require a fundamental shift in perspective. So, in looking at this, trying to delve deeper into the mystery of the human mind, we have to ask about science and philosophy of consciousness. And consciousness is one of the unsolved mysteries that great thinkers across many disciplines have attempted to elucidate. I know there are some people I know, skeptics out there, scientific skeptics, that don't believe consciousness exists, at least not the way we define it. Again, the dictionary calls it the quality or state of being aware. but that's all the further they go with it. Yet the true definition of consciousness has eluded great minds for centuries. And several attempts at defining consciousness have been made by philosophers, physicians, psychologists, neurologists, scientific researchers, sometimes even theologians. And one way to unravel the mystery of consciousness is to examine its opposite, which is the state of unconsciousness. Maybe this is what Kevin was getting at, talking about sleep. A person can become unconscious through general anesthesia, which is medically induced, a coma. The origins of applied anesthesia. I always have a problem with that because the anesthesia, excuse me, the origins of this applied anesthesia in humans in the Western Hemisphere is a brief and relatively modern history. So liquid ether was identified by Paracelsus, who was Theophrastus Bombastus von Hohenheim in 1540. What a name! That's Paracelsus. Paracelsus, also known as Theophrastus Bombastus von Hohenheim, or Hohenheim, probably, in 1540 to induce sleep in animals. However, it wasn't until centuries later, in 1842, when American surgeon Dr. Crawford Williamson Long first used dithyl ether, a gas, as anesthesia on humans. And Long later published its discovery in 1849. In 1846, a Boston dentist named William Morton also anesthetized a surgical patient using diethyl ether. And the following year, Scottish obstetrician Dr. James Young Simpson, he published the London Medical Gazette, in the London Medical Gazette, his use of inhaled chloroform on more than 8 patients. And today there are a variety of intravenous and inhaled anesthetics manufactured by various pharmaceutical companies. Anesthesia, the medication alters the activity and the communication of various brain regions by bringing on a rapid onset in brain waves or oscillation, which gets to the question that's behind all this medical data I'm giving you. If you can anesthetize the brain or bring on a coma, are you, in a sense, proving that the brain controls consciousness and controls reason? So no one knows the precise mechanisms on how anesthesia renders a person unconscious. This requires an understanding of the true nature of consciousness itself. And so one theory is that anesthetics provide the human brain from integrating information throughout a functional disconnection. And so is consciousness a biochemical phenomenon? Consciousness itself? Intrinsically tied to the physical elements of the brain? In other words, does consciousness exist because of the brain? If we didn't have a brain, could we be conscious? Probably not. So this biomechanical concept resonates with at least one prominent hypothesis of consciousness, and that's the theory of global workspace. It's called GWT. I don't know where the T comes from, but GWT is the theory of global workspace. And the global workspace theory was formulated by Bernard Baars. He's a native Dutch neuroscientist at the Neurosciences Institute in La Jolla, California. Baars likened the human brain as distributed society of computational specialists that are continuously processing information, which have a unique working memory. And in his paper titled Global Workspace Theory of Consciousness Toward a Cognitive Neuroscience of Human Experience, published in 2005, Baars characterizes this memory as fleeting in nature, with only one constant content at a time. He states that consciousness, this awakeness, sentience, this awareness, resembles a bright spot on the stage of immediate memory, directed there by a spotlight of attention under executive guidance. So consciousness, he says, can apply or amplify and broadcast the content of all our memory to the whole of the system. And in his metaphor, Bars posits that the overall theater is dark and unconscious. And the spotlighted area on stage represents consciousness. So consciousness is the gateway to the brain that enables multiple networks to coordinate, cooperate, and complete in solving problems. And you know what? We are at the end of the show for tonight. And so I want to carry this over till tomorrow and talk more about this particular thing. So come with your thinking caps on, come being aware, being sentient, and being awake. You know, I don't recall ever dreaming either, Beth Kirkham, when I was put under. I was put under a few times, once to have surgery on my hand. I don't think it was ever supposed to be, but I don't know that I was supposed to go to sleep, but I did. And I woke up and it was all over. And they had me in an operating theater and everything, so I was supposed to probably go to sleep. But I don't remember dreaming. I don't remember when I when I had my heart surgery, dreaming at that time. I know my wife and Rainey took videos of me doing this. Her and my daughters, they were kind of giggling at me. I was laying there. I wasn't awake, but I was mumbling. I wasn't saying words. I've done this sometimes in the half sleep where I'll be sitting on the sofa and I'll start watching TV and I suddenly jolt awake and everybody's looking at me and I'm like, what did I say? You didn't say anything. You were making noise. And they taped me a video. I was something like when it was coming out, it was right after surgery, a couple hours. And I was doing this, you know, I have no idea. I don't remember dreaming. I don't remember thinking I was saying anything or even talking in my sleep. So it's interesting. So gas makes you loopy, says Field Guy. Yeah, I remember having a root canal done on a tooth back when I lived in Lynchburg, Virginia, back in 1984. And I started quoting Shakespeare. And I started laughing about it, like, what the hell am I quoting Shakespeare? So it's pretty funny. It's very interesting. So consciousness, we'll look into this more tomorrow. Who's to say, says Matt, just because you don't remember it, it didn't happen. Perhaps it's just not absorbed into your memory. You might be right about that, Matt. Um, Leslie says, my late husband used to fall asleep on the couch and he'd be talking in his sleep, saying, are you going to get to work? Are you going to stand there all day with your finger up your ass? I've never said anything like that in my sleep that I know of. My daughters sometimes talk in their sleep, my little girls. So it's interesting. So anyway, there we go. Absorption is a funny thing. I'm not sure what that is, Corin. ABSIRBTON typo, or am I missing what the word is there? Scotty tapping out early. You should do a 16-hour marathon. Oh, hell yeah. And you can run it for me, Doug. You're not really tapping out early. We're done. We're pretty much done. Oh, he was an iron worker. Okay. That's interesting. You absorb. Okay. I think I know. Oh, absorption. Okay. Duh. All right. Well, on that note, we're going to quit for tonight. Guys, I appreciate you being here. Once again, I offer my official apologies, but I'm not really sorry. It's like saying I'm sorry, but I make no apologies. That we're in our makeshift studio, in our makeshift way of life at the moment, and it will be that way until I get it bumped up again. Oxy and beer, 3-hour show. Scotty, says Steve Clark. Yeah, I think we could probably pull that one off. Maybe that's a Friday night show. Do a little drinking. So, like I said the other night, Oh, even better. The other night, I think I told you all yesterday in the Sunday show. Um, the Mexican crew chief over here, he's in a camper down the lane here, and he gave me a little THC puffs on his pen, and I got to tell you what, I was loopy. So maybe we'll do a little bit of that sometime on the show. A weed show, is that illegal? I don't know if it is or not. So reminds me of an old WKRP in Cincinnati, that old TV series from the 70s or 80s. Howard Hessman, Lonnie Anderson, others you'd recognize. And they were trying to test the radio broadcasters, were doing an on-air test with a state trooper of how awareness either goes down or raises or goes down once you're drinking. And of course, Johnny Fever, played by Howard Hessman, um, his awareness, his reaction time went up. The drunker he got. So anyway, there you go. I agree with the suggestion to put swords behind Scotty. Yeah, we should do that. All my swords are back home in Wisconsin and being tended to. So I'll have to see what I can do. Maybe I can make some stick swords. We'll do a makeshift studio. I'll go out and get some of the rubble that's laying around the streets and stuff and do some makeshift stick swords, and we'll put them back there, and shields and things like that. Maybe that would be fun to do. All right, guys, got to get out of here. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you spending it with me here. If you want to become a member of this channel, yeah, it's makeshifty, but I hope it's still worth it for you guys. You can come over, hit the join button down below, and you'll see 3 different ways you can become a member. $2, $5, $15. Go ahead and read up on what you get out of those, and I'd appreciate anything you want to do to help support this show. There it is. No offering plate, no sing and say hallelujah. We're just going to ask you if you'd like. You can become a member. Helps out this channel. And that's it. That's all I got. So you guys have a good night. Be good on social media. Be kind. Be courageous. That's the line from the live action Cinderella movie they did a few years ago. My daughter Rowan picked that up. She was so into that the dying mother said to Cinderella when she was a little girl, be kind and be courageous. So you guys go out there, have a good night, good day tomorrow. See you right back here in about 23 hours. All right? So you know the drill. Live long and prosper.